Joe, what a day to have you. What a week it seems that it is going to be. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being extremely nervous and 10 being highly confident, how are you feeling right now about the merge?
I am 10, highly confident. We think it's going to be probably nothing, and probably nothing is a playful phrase in our ecosystem that indicates a bit sarcastically that we think it'll be enormously impactful, but it'll also be very likely nothing, in the sense that there's no disruption that's going to be experienced by end users. There's virtually no disruption that's being experienced by software developers. It'll be as smooth as if your iPhone or your laptop has upgraded its operating system automatically overnight.
Okay.
In terms of impact in the history of our ecosystem, there have been two major events so far: the advent of Bitcoin and the development of Ethereum, a much more programmable and expressive blockchain technology. This slots in as number 3, in my opinion.
Well, Joe, you're kind of painting a picture of smooth sailing. No one's going to notice. It's going to be seamless. Yet this also isn't necessarily real world proven yet. What is your biggest concern about things that potentially could go wrong?
Tiny little concerns. There's been so much testing that the merge itself is overwhelmingly likely to be very smooth. But we haven't tested it in the context of the whole big ecosystem, which is becoming an economy in its own right. And so there are lots of little projects that maybe read from the blockchain or depend on it in some ways. It's possible that some of those little projects haven't upgraded what they need to upgrade in order for their own smooth transition, but all the major services that depend on the blockchain have already done the work.
I think that's a good question. We've been talking a little about those concerns that maybe some of the exchanges have, and the reason perhaps that they are pausing withdrawals and deposits, including being layer 2s and how they interact with Ethereum after the merge. Are there changes that need to be made for any projects that are tied to Ethereum that may need to also make changes to really react to this merge?
Yeah, well, as many have said, we've been telegraphing this for many years and telegraphing it very explicitly for many months. And so, as I said, all major exchanges, all major infrastructure have done the work. And so there's nothing to be concerned about.
So you mentioned the ecosystem around it too, Joe. I mean, what is your expectation here about how the economics change when you move to proof of stake? Is there a sense of how much people are going to stake kind of in the initial months of the merge, and what that will mean for what Ethereum is worth?
Well, there's already an enormous amount of Ether staked in the Beacon chain. The merge is essentially moving the ConsenSys chain and the execution chain together into a single system. So there's already a huge amount of Ether staked, and we anticipate that with the reduction in this overhanging uncertainty, once the merge is complete, that many more actors, including institutions, financial institutions, will take that as a go sign that the coast is clear, and that they can treat Ether, a yielding asset, as something that they want to participate in as a decorrelated or uncorrelated asset, and an infrastructure that they already consider potentially systemically important in the future and need to gain expertise in. And so we've spoken to many financial institutions that are ready to dive in.
Well, Joe, you talk about the future, and of course, this is a major upgrade, no doubt, but it also, the idea, sets the stage for further upgrades down the road, upgrades that could do things like improve transaction speeds. Do you have a timeline as to what upgrade is going to come next and when?
Yeah, so the amount of Ether that will be issued by the protocol will be reduced by about 90%. And further, it won't actually be movable off the ConsenSys chain for a while. We implemented a minimum viable merge fork so that we could just ensure that we get everything right. And so we've delayed some other pieces to subsequent forks. And so it'll be a bunch of months before any of the newly issued Ether is able to leave the addresses that it'll be in, and so that's going to be very interesting for supply-demand dynamics, where the supply is of new Ether is essentially zero for quite a while. The next major upgrade will add what's called data availability, guaranteed data availability shards. And so we've seen the Ethereum network split up into a security module, an execution module, and soon a data availability module. The execution module has already brought tremendous scalability in the form of these layer 2 rollups that run transactions above the chain, but with the full security guarantee of the security layer. And then adding this third module, data availability, will enable these layer 2 rollups to be bigger, faster, and more plentiful.
Yeah. Joe, we only have about a minute left here. I'm really curious here about staking and some of the dynamics here. Do you fear that staking as a business, as you see Coinbase doing more of, and as you'd like to see more financial institutions do to encourage more staking to build this network, do you think it can come under scrutiny from regulators who fear that this is a yield-generating product, that this is could cause some liquidity mismatches, as we've seen in some other yield products in the crypto space?
Yeah, well, it is under scrutiny by regulators. Everything we do is under scrutiny by regulators. And since the start of the advent of our ecosystem, we've been progressively decentralizing what we do. We couldn't start out massively decentralized, and that is the goal. And every time that hackers or attackers within the rules in our ecosystem to try to exploit certain systems for monetary gain, or regulators identify weaknesses, and some of those weaknesses are in the form of centralization in our technology. We take that as a teaching signal, and that's where we focus next on making things rigorously, maximally decentralized. And so we already have a lot of work underway to decentralize every aspect of the staking ecosystem.
Joe, just want to squeeze this in quickly. So one word answer. When do you think the flippening might happen?
Soon.